Hello everyone, this is Javiera for javiejando.com, and I'm really happy to be with you all here again. This time I want to share what just happened that motivated this interview. I'm here with Amara Samara. For those of you who don't know her, she's the founder of the Inner Guidance Institute. She has had huge awakening experiences along her life, and in my personal opinion, actually, she holds a very holistic, particular, and uplifting embodied wisdom about life and human transcendence in general. So we were just working on some really awesome stuff when I happened to open my Facebook and found a message from a dear friend. And the message contained deep questions, and questions that actually touches us all in so many levels. So I'm blessed enough to be next to Amara, and we started this short discussion. So suddenly I stopped her and decided to record it and create this interview so you can all listen to it. And the topic is the topic of suffering. So my friend's questions are the following. She says, do you believe that we can always choose expansion? Do you believe that we don't have to suffer? Is suffering a human condition? So I think these questions are amazing. So first of all, thank you so much for asking such great questions, which actually feels not only that it's you who are wondering that, but it feels like really countless people wonder about this. I have wondered about this as well. She also shares the following. She says, I think pain is as valid as happiness, and suffering is necessary, but I'm not clear if this is a limiting belief or if it's actually allowing me to allow and experience all range of emotions and growth. So this is great because it also touches our belief systems regarding suffering. So we're going to go into this talk and conversation with Amara, and we're going to talk about suffering, how it might be serving us, and a way to deal with it, right? To go beyond it, if that's the case, and also some belief systems related to it. So thank you for being here. And Amara, what do you think about this?
Okay. Actually, I would try not to think and just speak from a place of personal experience and maybe connection to whatever wisdom I feel is within there. So we take the thinking out. Yeah, so the short answer, this is what I would say. The short answer to that is that suffering is necessary until we could just say, done.
Done. That's the answer.
That's the answer. The true answer is that suffering is obviously, in many cases, necessary or seems to be a necessary experience that brings us, ironically, out of suffering. And there is something that happens at the very core if one takes their suffering all the way to its core. This is what we call pulling out from the root. So instead of, what people tend to do is they start to go into suffering, they start to feel the suffering, if she's calling it that. And then the protection mechanism kicks in that says, but wait, I don't want to suffer. And so we start to avoid this feeling, and we start to do everything we can to pull ourselves away from this feeling of suffering that has now been triggered because of our, basically our misunderstandings about reality. So then this kind of jams up the process, and we pull away and we try to get away from the suffering, and maybe we get some distance and we feel a little bit better, but inevitably it's going to come around again. And it's going to have to at some point be fully looked at. Why am I suffering? Now, one of the ways to look at this fully, in my experience, and I've had speak to and I resonate with, also in their experience, maybe other people listening or you yourself had it in your own experience, where you actually turn towards the pain. You turn towards the feeling, and instead of pulling away from it, you just allow it to be. And if you're able to cultivate enough awareness to watch that you're doing this, and to move deep into it. Okay, I'm feeling this pain. I'm going to let it happen. This is it. I can't avoid it anymore. This is just how I feel. And you start to move into that feeling. And you really, really watch it. And you don't run away from it. And there's also a way people can they can indulge this feeling without too much awareness going on. And that gets really exhausting. Really bring out the best value for your suffering, Right. So it does take some awareness. And you go in and you let yourself be how you are. And you let yourself say the things your mind is saying. And you let your heart express the things it's expressing. And then you start to look at it. Is it really true, what I'm feeling? Is it really, really true? Is this the only truth, this pain, or is there something else? And you dig and you dig and you allow. However, this feels different for different people. But you go all the way into it, and then at that even people who have no awareness, actually, if they just are allowed to go into it, they will find in that suffering this thing that opens up. For me, it was a witness. So I was able to witness myself, saying, oh my goodness, look at her. She's really going for it now. She's really crying on the bathroom floor.
Oh
this
God.
is it. She's going for it. And the witness, which I had already cultivated, began to turn around and look at itself. And I let it happen. And I watched and I watched. And I began to see what was at the bottom of that pain, which was a misunderstanding and an avoidance of a truth. And really at the core of pain is this deep realization that actually we're okay. That actually we still love. We still love, we're okay. We can still smile. This is when we laugh, when you're blubbering and crying, or you're feeling this terrible thing, and then something makes you laugh, it's like you almost laugh at your own pain. And that laughter, that spark is there. And then you find that amazing thing, and it gives you hope or faith or something, and you can start to, and if you really want to go deep, deep, deep into that, you can untangle this. And you can start to see it's not what you think it is, which then translates to later being not even necessary. This suffering that is now approaching me is actually not the truth. I've already seen, I've seen that this is my way of avoiding. And then you can start to untangle things, as I call it, very quickly. You can start to process them and see them and move into that spark, into that smile, that laughter, that knowing I'm actually okay.
So in a way you're detaching from suffering.
I wouldn't say you're detaching from it. I'd say you're really going with it until it breaks.
And what happens when it breaks?
You realize a deeper truth that's lying underneath it, which is where it was guiding you all along.
So you would see suffering as a guiding line.
Yeah, the suffering is taking you in. The trick is, once it's gotten so bad, don't fight it, Watch it, look at it. Oh, this is so interesting. What am I suffering about? What am I really suffering for? Why is it? And you will find these things in there, pride or jealousy or fear of letting go of your identity as a victim. That's a big one. I'm just afraid. Actually, I'm fine. Actually, I'm okay. I don't need to be this. And can you see, if you start to develop this on the other side, and you start to cultivate what's underneath the suffering, what's deep hidden within it, the little gem within it, then you don't need to suffer in the same way. You actually don't need to. You can see, there is jealousy here. Okay. And you can allow it, and you can very quickly go to what's behind it. There's actually greatness there, there's love there. But there's resentment. Okay, I see the resentment. That's going to cause the suffering, the resentment. But when you look behind it, what's holding that resentment in place? It's a misunderstanding about all of our potential, our capacity, to be the love that we really are, to be the... Once somebody has realized that, do they need to suffer to know that? No. Right?
So I have a question here.
Yes.
There is a huge belief that suffering teaches us.
Yes.
Right? And because we want to grow, we hold on to suffering. So, for example, I am a big believer, maybe, that we do not need to suffer in order to grow or learn. Though we do learn when we suffer, because we believe that suffering is our teacher, we hold on to that. So I think it's important to remember that we can learn faster and easier through love, for example. That is my personal opinion. What do you think about that?
Learning through love. So if you have learned, so people who have used, it's like a tool, suffering is it's just a strategy, actually.
Is it addictive?
Sure. Yes.
Do we need it?
You do until you don't.
Can we choose not to?
Yes.
Anytime?
When you're ready. When you really actually are ready. When you actually see it. You have to actually see it. You can't fool yourself. It will just come back around.
Right.
And the feedback in life never lies. So if you find yourself in suffering again, you fooled yourself.
Right.
You cannot tell yourself, I refuse to learn from suffering. I, from this point on, am only going to learn from love. Okay. If that's your deepest core truth, you probably won't need to suffer.
And you won't suffer anymore.
Yeah, you probably won't. It would be quite small. If that's your absolute deepest core truth, and you see that with no shadow of a doubt. If you're believing it, that's different. There's a very big difference between what we believe and what we just know within our core.
I agree.
So you cannot tell yourself, I refuse to believe in this and I will now believe in that, because belief is not as strong as knowing.
Absolutely.
You can try and see where you get.
Yes.
But you actually have to know. So if you know, love is my teacher. Suffering was my old style. It's an old habit. I don't need it in that way anymore. Thank you very much. And this is also anything that limits us. It's very beneficial to forgive anything that needs to be forgiven within it and to thank it. It will not leave until you thank it. I've spoken about this many times. The darkness wants appreciation just as much as the light, if not more. So we must thank it for having been there. Then it can go. Finally, somebody thanked me. Then it can go in your life. So if this is your core wisdom that I learn from love and I don't need to suffer, you may find that's your experience. It depends how much ego is wrapped up in it. Because again, the ego is designed to avoid pain and to grasp pleasure. So if any small, even little thread of ego is saying, I don't want pain, I only want pleasure, and I think suffering is pain, and I think love is pleasure, and that's what I want, it's not
gonna work.
But
this is intriguing because when we actually wake up to who we are in our natural, obvious state, there is no suffering.
That's true. That has been my experience.
Yes, and that has been my experience as well. So one thing that I would like to say, and this I think will bring hope to this question, right? In our natural state, there is no suffering. So do we need to suffer as humans? No, we do not. That's my answer.
Right.
As in a core level. Now, why are we suffering? Why are we?
Because the human, the definition of human means different things to different people. And there are different levels of consciousness within human on the planet. And humanity is evolving. We cannot call human a definitive thing.
That's very interesting.
Everyone thinks of human as something. People will say, but I'm only human. Most of what they're talking about is their ego. But I'm only egoic.
Wow.
Very little of what we call human is actually the human
potential.
The true human. There's also within us, so there's the egoic human, the embodied egoic human. There's also the superhuman. This capacity to be this divine, limitless being abiding in a physical form that we call human. And this kind of human operates very differently. It can be in two places at one time. It can levitate. It can walk through walls. It can do all kinds of things that we don't tend to associate with human.
Right.
So very different kinds of human nature, human experience. You're talking about consciousness. We're not talking about the body.
Right.
The body is a reflection of consciousness anyway. So everybody's human is different.
Well, that's interesting. You're right.
Yeah.
Mm.
So when you hear people, as I said, talking about, is this the human condition? I would say for some yes and for some no.
Mm.
What kind of human are you talking about?
Potentially speaking?
Yeah, our potential is to, of
Huge.
course, is to live beyond suffering in a golden age of, beautiful divine paradise. Of course, that's our potential. It's not even that hard to do, actually.
Yeah, actually, I would say that suffering is a really limiting experience from the eternal point of view, in
From
a way.
the eternal point of view, it is not sustainable. However,
Exactly.
it's very beneficial in its limited capacity. Think of it like, again, a strategy, a tool. A hammer is a very wonderful tool when you're building a house. At some point, the hammer becomes ridiculously unneeded, The house, maybe you pick it up from time to time, a little bit of hammering is needed. But at some point, you just live in the house. And you're not thinking about the hammer anymore.
And what do you think this tool is helping us build or remember or break through?
I would call it conscious evolution. It's a tool for consciousness to awaken unto itself. There's nothing like suffering to get your attention.
I agree. I agree to that.
And if we are very committed to waking up beyond suffering, we can get there in a way that maybe less suffering involved.
Mm.
But the commitment must be very strong, and the awareness must also be very strong, and you must be able to see very clearly and very quickly to eliminate suffering. People, in business, you can make a big mistake. In life, you can do something, that brings great suffering. You kind of had a feeling you shouldn't do it, but you went against it.
Yes.
And then, here comes, until finally you avoid it, and then here comes the big wave, of suffering. And you kind of knew it, Yeah, we're not talking the cause of it, we're talking about the use of it, So the cause of it's a longer conversation. But the use of it as a tool, I would say it's very useful. It works. It wouldn't be here if it didn't work. It wouldn't have survived this long. It's in service to something. However, we're all starting to see it's not the holistic picture, It's not what we're all really... This is not like, great, I suffered and I learned, and therefore I can't wait to suffer again and learn again. And
that is interesting.
Maybe there's some of that in there. This is the addiction.
And we come down to learning. I mean, as eternal, we don't need to learn anything anyway.
Yeah, if at some point you really, the seeker finds. At some point the seeker finds. And then, the idea of suffering, the idea of learning, the idea of needing to do or be anything other than you are becomes ludicrous. It doesn't mean things don't expand from that point of view, but it's coming from a very different perspective. Yeah, once you've reached a certain, we could call it level of understanding, or not understanding, pure experience, embodied experience. Your ability to suffer, to go back into that suffering, becomes less and less. And there does come a point, they say, in the Tibetan tradition, where after a certain milestone, if you will, you actually can't go back to it anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that is one of the teachings.
That's good news as well.
Yeah, it's good news. And, humanity is trying to catch up to that place. And some have definitely transcended suffering, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So do we need it? Yes. Forever? No. And can we move beyond it? Well, we can certainly try.
Yeah, we can certainly can.
And we can ask, and we can request it to be graceful. And then we see what we get. You know, the feedback, the karma never lies. And then if you find yourself in the face of suffering, thank you. Take everything you can from it, go to its core, realize the lesson, embody it, and move on.
Yeah, I really like what you say. In a practical way, then, if we are in that place that is painful,
Yes.
you would say, go deeper. Go deeper into that pain. Don't avoid that pain. That would be where to go, you know?
I would say if your mental capacity can handle it, definitely. That's the fastest way out. If it is really beyond your capacity, and you must know yourself very well, if it's, you know, suicide or nervous breakdown, and people will experience these things. At some point, you know, evolution doesn't really care about your ego. It really doesn't have an interest in, you know, your ability to take it or not. And we see this happening from time to time. And some people can't take it. And we know what that looks like. But if you can feel within yourself the capacity to turn towards your own suffering and to say, wow, what are you? What are you here for? As you say, suffering, you are welcome here. Come on in. Let's have a talk.
Let's have a talk here.
Yeah, I want to see what you're about.
Go through.
Yeah, I'm ready to come in. If you can do that, you know, that's the work. That's the deep work. That's the transformational work. That's what will create the transformation, the expansion, the release from suffering. Of course, if you're moving into territory that says, I'm about to, you know, jump out the window, you need to back off.
Ask for help or something.
Yeah,
be practical.
Back off, be practical, ask for help. Go back into what I call egoic mastery, or what is that big body of work called the self-help school of thought. And go into the self-help. Go into the self-mastery. And pull yourself up. Get yourself together, you know. It will come around again. You're not finished. But you're maybe more well-equipped this time. Maybe you're a little bit stronger. Maybe you're a little bit, you know, you need other tools before you can really dive into that pain.
Yeah. There is this, I think Inele Vance mentioned this, and she said that your higher self, right, will never give you something that you cannot take, in a way. So it's kind of like good news.
Yeah.
Like, you can take it. Though, you can also present it in a mild way. I don't know. This is just a thought.
All these requests are completely valid. You have every right to request for grace. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. But I definitely believe in asking.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get your requests?
Yes, I do.
I
have.
Yeah, I know you do. That's why
I
asked.
I needed them. There were times in deep suffering where I said, if you don't show me some compassion in the next 3 minutes, you know, whatever deal I'm making with the universe, you know, right. I'm going to throw all this out the window and believe that it's just rubbish and none of it means anything. So you had better step up. Is it true or not? Show me. I need some compassion. You know, and then somebody came along, and a stranger came along and kissed my hand. Out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
And walked away, you know. So these are the kind of things that are helpful. This was a helpful request, and the universe met my need.
I would totally encourage requests as well. Yeah. Like, I've requested many times, like, I need this and that, and be very specific with it. It's like, I really need help with this, I'm open with that. Yeah. And those things have come to me.
Right. And these things come to people who are really deeply committed. Mm-hmm. If you're just going around and you're trying to, like, you know, those kind of people that say, you know, God, if you help me with this right now, I promise I'll never do bad again, you know? And what they're really wanting is just kind of a pass.
Yeah, give me a pass on this.
Give me a free pass. And of course, they're going to go back to what they did before. And they didn't really mean it.
But this is so interesting because it mean at some point that there is a judgment, like a God judging our requests, right?
It's yourself.
It's yourself.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's yourself. That, as you say, that higher self.
I wanna address that it's not about a God looking. Oh, you're good, you're bad, you deserve this, you don't.
Yeah,
it's your higher self. It's yourself.
Bargaining with yourself,
right?
You know, and maybe you get the free pass and you get off easy for a while
from yourself.
But at some point, your higher self, your evolved, expanded consciousness comes in and says, you know, we could call it the divine self. Comes in and says, "Nah, I'm not giving you a free pass." Boom! Massive suffering comes in at that point.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's your time to get serious and to really look.
Really go into it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I feel this was a great question. I mean,
yeah. Thanks for asking the question.
When I read it, I felt this question is it comes from so many people. It doesn't come from one person asking.
Yeah, we're really ready to ask this question. Do I need to suffer? Do I really need to make sacrifices anymore? And my dream is that we can wake up to, actually, no, we don't. We don't need it in that way. And I know there are other realities that seem to exist.
What exactly do you mean?
We call them other dimensions, or these are in where other
timelines?
Yeah, other timelines, or however you want to describe them, that we have access to. Yes, as is above, so is below. So what goes on in the Bardo state, in this space in between lives, we have access to these dimensions if we play our cards right.
It feels like a different kind of topic.
Yes.
Really big.
Let's not go into that.
Let's not go into that just yet.
Huge thing over there. But secretly inside, I think we all know. Whether we've experienced it in other dimensions or not, you don't even have to get that cosmic. You can just sit here in reality and say, in this reality, and say, we can feel it. We can feel that. But if you look very closely, yes, there is a long-standing habit to suffer.
Like how you call it, habit?
Habit, meaning it has become a way of living.
A way, yeah.
It has become a way of processing. It has become a way we use to get clear. And some of us don't even maximize our efforts within it. And so it just kind of
happens and repeats.
Spins around and around and around.
Yeah.
And it can get very
blurry.
Difficult to get yourself out of that suffering, you know. And it can not even happen in one whole lifetime. But eventually it does crack.
Good news again.
Yeah, good news again. It is not, endless suffering is not a sustainable, it's not an eternal system.
Right.
There are some who argue that it is, and I would say that it can seem like it is. But in the cosmic picture, the only thing that is eternal is actually the opposite of suffering. That removes suffering.
And we do have access to that.
We all have access to that. It's what we are.
It's what we are. So that's good news.
Good news. Yeah, just know yourself. Watch yourself. Learn from yourself.
Choose.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
You go there, it's like, there is a state of no choice. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, choose. Choose as much as, again, choose is kind of like request, you know? Do I have choice?
Right.
Again. Yeah. Next time we talk about that.
Next time we talk about that. But it's so funny because while I look at your books and I'm reading this Osho book that it says, The Path of Love. So I think this has been a great random.
Can you feel into what it would be like to both learn from your suffering and then also move away from suffering? Not in a trying to get away from pain, but in a not needing it anymore. Yeah?
Yes.
Can you guys feel it? Yeah.
Yes.
And there is choice though, but you did hit on an important part, because there is a certain amount of choice that is available to each individual about how much they are going to suffer.
And for how long?
And for how long. There is some choice within that, for sure. You can say, but you have to alert, Am I kidding myself or not? Is this real or not? Am I just running away? Or is this true? You have to really look. Because at some point you can pick yourself up off the bathroom floor and say, I'm done. And if you really mean it, I'm done in this way. This is not the way. There's something else. And you really mean it and you go forward with that, yeah, you're going to experience amazing things. And likewise, if you say, I'm done, and you retreat from the pain, nothing has really been understood,
It's a different feeling.
I'm going to go have a drink, Screw this. Let's go have a drink, that's an avoidance. Then you've gotten, and maybe that's fine for a little stability, for a little bit, but you're only buying yourself a little bit of time,
Before you get into the same thing.
You're going to have to face whatever happened on the bathroom floor, at some point you're going to have to really there's really no way around it. But the good news is right after it is really seen, it becomes ecstatic. It becomes blissful. The release from that. So, yeah. Is it completely pain-free? It tends to not be.
Yes.
But once that has been realized, you can see, then the next time it comes around, and it becomes less and less painful. And then you can admit you can sort of confess without having to suffer within the confession. And it's quite, it's okay,
Go through it.
And to go through it, and then just wake up out of that.
Ooh. Thank you so much for this wisdom, Amara. It's great.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question as well.
Whatever it's worth. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, beautiful.
Enjoy.
Already. Yes. Enjoy the suffering.
Enjoy.
Go through it. There is more to it, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
And it is a beautiful process when it finishes, when it comes out the other side.
Right.
There's something very beautiful about it. And then you never look back and say, God, I wish I hadn't. It doesn't actually feel that way. There may be a moment of that, but that's also just a misunderstanding.
Right.
So it's okay.
I like that this has many good news in a way.
Yeah.
Yes.
No true bad news in there, right?
No. But it's painful? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So my biggest hug, to the people that we do suffer. Yeah. Biggest hug to that process.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah, and to the courage that it takes.
All right. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you to all the listeners. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Tamara.